Hello, this is George Pligoropoulos, and this is the eighth part of the Quality Assurance Engineering series. This is my LinkedIn profile if you want to know a bit more about me. And today we're going to talk for something like that. But before we dive in, let me tell you that this is how traditionally people have thought of quality assurance. Like, imagine like someone is coming to give you to reassure that there is quality in your product or service, and he's someone with a tie, and he's holding a pen, and he's just checking boxes, right? And you can say that this is equivalent to someone writing scenarios in quality assurance engineering and executing those scenarios and having a pass or fail. And indeed, it's similar to that. But traditionally, in software, you write specific scenarios for the specific features or services. But we're trying to give an ISO. You need a more generic concepts to things. So you're creating lists that are applicable to multiple, to multiple industries, perhaps, or multiple companies. So here is a principle. So since this is something very simple, this is quality assurance. This is not quality control. How we're gonna, how we're gonna find bugs, etc. This is going a step back, thinking about quality assurance and what could we do in order to emerge with a higher quality from the first release. And the point is that, first of all, you have this, that people forget. And all people forget, even the seniors, even those who are many years in the company. You always have this, that people are going to forget. And it's not wise to have your product rely upon human memory. And in fact, you don't want this liability. Human memory has been outsourced to computer memory, and this is going to happen more and more in the future, actually. So, yeah, do not rely on that. And let's see, how we're going to start thinking about that, how we're gonna solve this. And this is the very, very easy, because you have quality assurance. This is number one over there, is about one of the things that you can do to have quality assurance without thinking of quality control, without thinking of executing scenarios. And I have here for you some common things, and you can have a large list of these questions, like that none of these people, like, for example, you want to cook tomorrow. Your intention was not, of course, you're thinking about the meal, you want to have a great lunch, for example. And you never intended, not to be prepared. You were well intended, and but you just forgot. You were thinking about taking the meat out of the fridge, but you just forgot about it. And the result is that you or whoever else would be part of this lunch, either those who prepare the lunch or those who were going to eat the lunch. All of them are going to be disappointed because one single action of not taking the meat out of the fridge the previous night, and then defrosting it in a rapid manner, might not make it as high quality as you wanted. Um, Similar questions here about watering the plants, or sending a birthday card. All are relied upon human memory. And people and not only, and these are only a single thing that you need to do, but imagine that you have now a huge list of things that you need to do within one day. Are you going to remember all of those, or are you going to remember all the past mistakes that you did and never repeat them? And the truth is that people are going to forget. And as we said, it doesn't really, experience can help, but up to a certain point. Different days of the week, different days of the year, different periods, different situations outside of your workplace, for example, might affect your memory. And the point is to help people with that, not blame that someone did not think of something, but directly help them. And this is as easy as having a checklist. To know the entire thing, to know which dimensions are affected by a new feature. And while the checklist seems like something silly, or yes, of course, we're going to remember that, yes, of course, the point is that people, one of the problems here is that people don't want to admit that they can, they can forget something as easy to forget as that. So people are going to say that, of course we're gonna check in both Android and iPhone, for example. I mean, if you hold people accountable to that, they might feel even as a threat, because they might feel awkward to be fully senior and still forget something very, very simple in a project. But this is actually happening, and the point is to help people not stress their memory, but instead use their brain in a more creative way, and have their memory, have tools and processes reinforcing their memory all the time. And let's see how is this going to happen, right? Sorry, let's go to the next slide here. And this is just a random Jira Epic ticket that I found online. I'm not related to this project or to whoever is there as assignee. But let's imagine that you have this kind of epic, that you want to develop a team calendar application, and you have your goal objective, and you have the key functionality and features, and there are the user, the entities that are going to be involved, who is going to be involved in this project, and the what applications it will have, some assumptions, and what's going to be out of scope, which is also very good always to have, and specify so that people will not get out of scope. And let me get myself out of this corner and put me here. And so you have this, let's say one Jira topic, one Jira epic. But let me bring you now a lot of things that could have been forgotten, but not if you would just put them here in this empty space, right? A lot of empty space here. Why not put a checklist? This is gonna make, you might have 10, 20 people or more people, be involved in this project. And all of them, want to be helped. I'm gonna share with you some things that could play a role here, and you can create your own list. First of all, environments, right? And this is not, and someone can say that, okay, George, you always have environments, you always have production, You always have testing environment. You might have also a QA environment for the quality assurance engineer, and you have some environment for the developers. We always have these environments. Why should we bring this inside the Epic? And the point is that either you need to bring this inside the Epic in a form of checkboxes, or just as a reminder that this is going to be deployed in various environments, and you might need to consider various things like that in production you might want for this team calendar have these and these things that in staging in order to make it or going an environment back in QA in order to make it testable. For example, you might need to have to set a specific a custom current date and time. You might want to make this configurable, right? And the point is that yeah, if you don't have this there, it might be forgotten. Other things, the platform. Someone needs to to specify, because you might have a feature that it's only for Android, or it's only for the web, or you might have a feature that has Android, iOS, and web. By having them there inside the ticket, you actually remind the team, and you can you can help the team bring questions like that. Oh, in iOS there might be some limitations, or as you usually have, or anything similar, right? It's there, it's present. Someone says that this is for all platforms: Android, iOS, web, smart TV, smartwatch, and this helps everyone saying that, going to a ticket and saying like which platforms is this supposedly to be deployed to. Is this for one platform, for all platforms? Because sometimes we leave this as that it is that is common knowledge, for example, but it's not really like so. And if you put it in a custom attribute in the Epic in Jira, you might also make it as a filter later, which is also an advantage. You want to filter based on the platform, and this means that this entire Epic and project has can have sub stories that can be specific for each platform, etc. And language translation, another thing that is forgotten because someone is excited about the feature and but has not specified if this is going to be at the beginning perhaps English only, because we might having a general situation where you have all of the tickets being in the same in all languages, it can be okay. But imagine like that you have not infinite resources, and you want to create like some proof of concepts, or you want to create some small MVPs you want to try to your users, and you want to restrict those to a specific language because you actually want to test how are the users going to respond, and you don't want to translate, right? Only after maturity you want to translate it. So, but you need to specify this. Or you might want to say that we support 10 languages and we want only a couple of languages. If you don't specify this, people are just going to forget. And if you forget, then all hell can break loose. Right? And other things is something that is very, 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 very easy to forget is good and bad interconnection. Usually, you can say that okay, we can tolerate some, that the application will not be will misbehave, let's say, and we can tolerate that. But But if you really don't care about this, have it as a checkbox, right? Because if you really explicitly do not care, then say the developers to follow some common practice and that's all. But if you really care of what is going to happen in a binary connection, then having it there as a reminder to the entire team and saying that this is important to us for some reason. And this is another checkbox that it will remind to everyone that error messages should be created, should be written and created, maybe also translated, and that an error screen should be presented, and in general follow paths of what will happen and how the user will be able to recover from having a binary connection. And another thing is a light and dark theme. This can be forgotten as well, because at some point you might have someone saying that we're going to support the light dark theme globally within the entire app. But when things are changing and the app is evolving and new features are being created, you need to actually maintain this throughout the entire application, right? Because if the user has selected the dark theme and you have created a new feature and have forgot about it, then this is a problem. This is a problem about because you have black text, and black text on the dark theme, it's gonna vanish, and just from this very little detail, you have made you have caused the feature actually to be non-usable perhaps. And the light or dark theme can also play another role, that you need to account this in mobile applications, because the user can actually change the light or the dark theme on the spot inside the screen. It's not only gonna be just a setting, but the user can bring the settings in the current screen, and the screen should update live. And this could include also web views, etc., that you might have. Another thing is portrait and landscape, and this is really important, because imagine that you have one of the most senior engineers in the team, and because you don't have a lot of landscape screens, you're saying that you have a global configuration about portrait. Okay, but let's say that for some weird reason this code was affected and the global configuration will not affect a new screen that is being created. So you have a new screen, okay? So you have a new screen, okay? And everyone has developed and tested it actually, and has passed even from QAs, etc. And everyone was holding the application like that, like in portrait mode. And the end user, the customer is the end user, will somehow leave the device on the table and just pick it up again, and it's going to rotate the device to landscape. And just because of the single thing that it was forgotten to enforce portrait, all the graphics are going to break. Maybe the user will not be able to come back of the situation. He might also be forced to kill the application. And this was created, for example, from a senior developer, and this is expected. And this is a typical case that the problem was of not putting this thing here inside, inside somewhere in the Jira ticket, to remind people that this screen is portrait. Because when you remind them, they're not going to make the mistake. But if you let it at luck, they're going to make this mistake. And it's not anyone to blame, junior or senior. It's to blame the process and not having simple, simple practices like having a list like that. And let's go even more. Let's go to to width of browser in desktop. Another thing, if you have responsive web pages, you need to to play with the width up and down, and you need to specify to the people like at how we're going to treat it, because responsive might be nice and useful in some parts of the web page, the website, but in other web pages might not be. So just please specify to the people who are developing. Um, Branch on countries, right? If you have a global application and you might have be presenting yourself in Asia or in United States or in Europe differently, and you have various brands, then you need to take this into account, because let's say you're building here a team calendar application, okay, but since you're deploying globally, where are you gonna? Is this going to play some role, the brand, or is it going to be, working the same in a global way? Maybe you want to build something different for the Europeans in comparison to the rest of the world. But please, if you have this, specify the opposite, that that countries do not play any role, just do not care about that. But explicitly saying that you do not care, again, it's very, very important, right? Because saying I do not care about countries just removes this question out of everyone, or perhaps brings questions. And let's go to the next one. Demo slash premium user, right? Again, because all the interfaces might be accessible, but the demo user or the non-premium user will have some limitations. And again, this needs to be specified, like, okay, we want to build this application, this feature, this new feature, this team calendar, but what we're going to do between demo and premium users. Or maybe this is something that this is going to be free feature for everyone. It's going to be the same for demo and premium users. Again, specify this, that this is free both for demo and premium users. Another thing, the version of the operating system. If you're deploying for for Windows, for you need to specify, perhaps, right? Because this can play a role, that we are supporting upwards from this version and on. And usually this is something not for a specific epic. If you're differentiating, that this should be put inside the epic, but in general there should be a reminder that we're supporting from this operating system version and upwards, or specifying that only supporting this operating system, because this might need to be integrated, for example, with a banner in the team calendar, and the developer will need to know to create an extra ticket in order to implement this banner that is going to specify to the users that sorry, that we're not supporting your operating system. You need to use this other operating system, and this is how you're going. And you need to be helpful, of course, and this is how you're going to introduce it and install it, perhaps. Other thing, mobile screen size. This is something to be taken into account, that not all mobile devices have the same size, even if you're holding on portrait, right? Because you might have tablets that you want to support, or in general, you might have some phones that are have this very small screen size, and others that have a much larger screen size, right? And so this is certainly an issue here, that but you need to specify. Maybe you have only two, right? Maybe you say that small screen sizes or large screen sizes. and you need to care that some things might be different. Another thing is the actual mobile brand and device, because you might have Android, you might have iOS. Now Huawei has built their own operating system, but the point is that um, sometimes between devices there are issues, right? It's not um, because consider like you might have Xiaomi's and Samsung. This is just two random brands that come to mind, and there might be differences of how the Android implementation that might affect you. They might affect, for example, the push notifications, how exactly they work, or if the push notifications will include a sound. This might be affected severely from the operating system and the brand that has implemented this version of the Android. And going next might be the account type. Again, you might have two, three, even more account types. And here I'm thinking of some, read-only super admins. You might have, someone who are acting as regional managers for the platform that you are selling to the users. And I'm not talking about inside the company, right? I'm talking about like if this team calendar application, your end users have a way to manage this because this is being sold to, for example, to a company, to an entire organization. And you might have various account types because, anyway, again, if you are working globally, you might want to have various accounts that you have different pricing. And, and again, you need to specify this. You need to specify, again, do not care of the account type. This is totally fine, but it needs to be present. It needs to be like with a checkbox that, we want all of these account types to have whatever you see in the ticket, but for specifically for read-only account type, we want to change this entire epic, this entire business requirements in this and this and this and these manners have these limitations. Again, if you don't specify this explicitly, do not consider that people will remember, and this needs to be a separate checklist in every ticket, especially epics and or perhaps Tira stories, because if you have all of this information that we're explaining here, right, all of this information, if you want to have them there, this is never going to happen. You need to have a strict, checklist here to other things that you might have before or after expiration of tokens. This is wow. I cannot imagine. Like I'm laughing here because you cannot imagine how easily this can be forgotten. You know what happens actually if you just and imagine how difficult this is to test, right? Because you're using the application, you are testing it as much as possible, but expiration is difficult to test because first of all you need to make it configurable, and if you cannot make it configurable, you need to rely on yourself just leaving the mobile at your desk and picking it up later, perhaps after the lunch break, and see what happens. And usually you have the application misbehaving really badly, or the application needs to be killed, etc. And because because these things, you see, all of these things are generic, they're not specific for the team calendar. All the things someone said long time ago that they are very important, we need to take care of those, but we forgot about those. And this is the point here. Like, if you have an expiration token and in various screens, and you want to somehow treat this, think about that. think about it or say that we're gonna, treat this expiration token with a global, you know, okay, something was stuck in the video, but no worries, we're continuing where we were left, and we were talking about the before and after expiration of tokens, and the point here was that people can forget about this very, very easily, and you need to explicitly specify that we're treating this in a global way. Like if the token expires, the user is going to be automatically locked out or something like that. But you need to remind people, put it inside, put it in the empty space besides the epic to remind them. Item type, again, when you're checking, you might be considering that, I don't know, calendar here, I guess calendar is all about events, right? But you might have something different like recurring events. You might have simple calendar events, you might have recurring calendar events, anything you might have. It can be something that needs to be specified to the engineering team and actually the entire team, because this can be read by marketing, it can be read by product managers, by the project manager, and any other stakeholder, that this depends on these item types, and or again that the item type does not make any difference. Follow the epic and treat all item types the same. And another thing is about concurrency. And again, like something that needs, because you imagine like it only takes a few seconds, but usually this is a question or a question that's easily forgotten. Because you have multiple devices, multiple clients, and how is the application going to behave? And when you have this in every ticket as a checkbox, you might leave a small comment there that how the product manager is expecting for the application to behave. And this is going to help, especially at the beginning of a project or of a new feature. It's going to help engineers, to build the architecture in a way that will always account for that in general. Or we might, specify that, opening, for example, multiple tabs in the same client should be prohibited. Or when you have multiple clients, we might be okay with the race condition, whatever happens first. Or if something happens outside of our control, then we're going to treat it like so. But the point is to actually consider this, because if you don't put this in the list, because imagine I started telling you about environment and platform and language, and nobody was thinking about concurrency at the time, right? You were not actively thinking about concurrency. You were saying about if it's portrait or landscape, etc. But when I brought to your attention about concurrency, now you're going to think about that, and you're going to think of how is the team calendar application is going to be affected from concurrency. And boom, I helped. Not I like this list. This list helped your memory, and you're not going to forget. And nobody's going to forget, and people are going to ask questions, and you're going to have a super robust feature. And the flavor of the mobile app in the App Store. Again, for various reasons, you might need to deploy a mobile app that has a slightly different flavor, because there are some laws in another country that are forcing you to do so. Another country might say that due to our regulation, all the applications in our country needs to be, have a specific application only for our country. Or you might have flavor for other reasons, but for whatever reason, you might have different flavors. You need to account that these flavors might have as simple as a different logo, and this can be a nice reminder to the designer that, oh, for this new feature we will have the logo at some point in this at some place in the screen, and in this other flavor I need to remember to create this logo that it's going to be specific perhaps for this. It's going to be a little bit different, has something different. And again, helping people with the memory. And something last, performance. If we're expecting, like, are we okay for this feature to have an action after 5 seconds as we used to have, or someone might say, consider that 5 seconds is like a lot. The people are going to gonna click and use the calendar in a very rapid fashion, and any action that takes more than 1 second, it's not acceptable, and we want to have this under consideration. Again, all of these can be scenarios, but the point is that I'm telling you that you don't want quality control for all that. All of these can be reminders to the entire team that we need, or we don't care to need, uh, uh, and this can be as easy as a checklist. I mean, why not have this? This is one of the things that I believe it's applicable to a whole range of applications, and this is not specific. Of course, I'm not talking about the specific cells of this list. This is just one example that I would consider useful in web and mobile development, but you might have more things on your list, or you might want to remove some of those from here because you don't consider them important in your own project. The point is to have some kind of checklist, and not ask people to remember all of those all of the time. This is pointless to do when you have computers and nice UI interfaces in Jira to remind for all of those. So again, going back to our of why we created this in the first place, let's check this. And this was done to build a checklist to help people, help here should be Paul as well, and because people do forget things, and this is one, and perhaps the most easy and the most profitable, and you're gonna get huge benefits from following some kind of a checklist and having their having quality assurance and not thinking of quality control. And going back, this is how we're going to help people to not forget. And this was George Plioro Plus for the 8th part. And thanks a lot for watching and taking your time to watch this. And I hopefully this has brought you an added business value. Thanks a lot for your time, and see you at the next one.